Okay, so the next set of ratios we're going to look at is what we refer to as our liquidity ratios. So let's just get this in context. What we mean here. The term liquidity, first of all, liquidity. And I guess in a way you can sort of see what just from the meaning, just from the actual word. Liquid is water, isn't it? I mean, water, drinks, whatever. So it's really in business, when we talk about liquidity, we're talking about cash. Cash is what's considered a kind of our version of water, and I guess the argument is that water is drinkable because you see, ultimately, if you have ice in the fridge and you don't have water and you're thirsty, forgive me, but you have ice, you can't drink ice. Yes, you have ice. We can see it. And everyone can see, yes, that ice eventually is water. But ultimately, you need to drink water. And people are thirsty. So as pretty as ice looks, if it can't be turned into water quickly, then it is almost useless. And what liquidity is sort of measuring is this ability to turn, or if you like, the ability, yes, to turn ice into water, and drink the water. So I guess the first thing is to look at what we're talking about, because in the short term, people are thirsty, and the argument is in the short term you need to pay, your anyone you owe. So the question is, what assets do you have in the short term that can be turned? Do you keep in the short term that can be turned into water quickly, or into money or cash quickly? That's really the issue here. So we have two key ways of measuring this ability, or the ability to turn certain assets into money quickly. And so we have the current ratio and the acid test ratio. And this piece of information is so important for many businesses, because no matter how beautiful your business is, if you can't pay off your short-term liabilities, as in the people you owe in the short term, if you can't pay your expenses in the short term, then your business might fail. All right, so let's look at the idea. Let's play with some numbers just to give you sort of an understanding of what I'm saying. So here we are. And if you remember, just to give you this, when you invest money in a business, say for example you invest 1 million as capital into the business. If you remember, this goes into assets, but we have two types of assets. We have our non-current assets and we have our current assets. So if you buy a building worth, I don't know, £400,000, you have no intention of selling this building. This building has, you're going to keep it because that's where you do all your work. Well, what you're also going to do with the other 600,000 is you're going to buy some inventory. I mean, you'll have some cash left. So let's just imagine that you buy inventory worth 300,000, and you have cash left of 300,000, right? Because you have that million was invested. A is equal to C, and the 400,000 and the 300,000 and 300,000 here. Now this bit, let me just change my color pen here. Let's go for blue. This bit over here, this, if you like, is what we're talking about. These are your current assets. These are the things we need to turn. We need to sell this inventory. We need to buy more inventory. The key point here is that we're talking about this area here. How can we, get this into cash and get rid of it and sell it? We will not be selling our building. The threat to our building occurs if we're not able to get rid of this. I mean, the key point is if you remember, we might have bought some inventory on credit. So for example, you don't have to use capital. You could, for example, owe someone. So you could have a liability, and you could buy some inventory for, say, £500,000, and you'll have inventory £500,000. So if you like, you owe someone. So this becomes a current liability. You'll have inventory of 500,000, which is an asset. So you have an asset of 500,000, but you also owe someone 500,000. Well, at some point you need to sell that inventory so you can pay off this person you owe. And so that's what we're really looking at here with this this relationship between current assets and current liabilities. In the short term, can you pay off your current liabilities? Right, so let's sort of tidy this up a little. So typically, you can have a scenario where you can see a business and they have current assets, they have some inventory. Let's put the inventory at 2 million. They've sold some inventory, so they are owed. They've sold some inventory on credit, so people owe them money, maybe of 5 million, and they have some cash in the bank of 1 million. But they had bought this inventory for 3.5 million, so trade payables. I mean, we could have walked through the very process of how all of this started, but it doesn't matter. The key point is that we know we bought some inventory, we've sold some of it on credit, we have some more cash in the bank. So this is our current situation. Our current situation is that we have current assets of this, and we have current liabilities of this. Now the question is, of course, we always want these to be greater than this, because if this guy wakes up tomorrow, and says, you know what, I want my money, because you owe him, you bought these goods on credit. Well, here's the thing, you're going to say to him, oh, you know what, why don't you just wait a little, because I'm owed 5 million, I'm going to get my 5 million tomorrow. So if you receive your 5 million, well, the people don't owe you 5 million, you now have 5 million in the bank, so you can now pay off this guy. So the key point is you always want your current assets to be greater than your current liabilities. This is like it's a given. And so the first ratio we always talk about, if you like, is the current ratio, which compares all our current assets to all our current liabilities. So some people say CA over CL, some people say CA to CL. In this scenario, what we have is we have 8 million to 3.5, if you like. So this is a good ratio. So I guess 8 divided by 3.5 gives you. So this is at a bottom line, this is 2.2 to 1. So this is saying for every pound we owe, we have 2.2 pounds, £2.20 available to pay it. That's what this is saying in general. This is the big picture. For every pound we owe, we have 2.25 available to pay it. Well, for every 3.5 pounds we owe, we have 8 pounds available. But of course, we want to speak in simple terms. So we break it down to this idea of the pound. So that's what the current ratio looks like. I mean, you can probably see the issues, actually. We'll carry on with this in the next video. But you can see the problems here. You know, I'm just going to clean this up a bit so you can sort of see what the problems are. But you can see that it's not as pretty as it seems okay, but there are some problems. But for now, the key point is that as long as I can shift my inventory, get my money from my trade receivables, I'm fine. I can pay off my trade payables easily, right? And this is where we discuss the current ratio. So let's just go back to the slides, right? And again, it's about looking at how the company manages its assets and liabilities, and we can compare, of course, to last year and other companies. But in the next video, we'll look at the acid test ratio. That'll be shorter. Okay, great stuff. See you then.